Pokemon had it. Do you want it? Oh yeah, wait, what? Really? You're a professional Pokemon breeder and you don't know how an egg got there? Do you? What is going on, guys? This is Dobbs here, bringing you another Pokemon video. And in this video, I'm going to show you 10 of the most unique Pokemon that you probably didn't know about. And you're probably asking yourself, what do you mean by unique? Well, I'm talking about Pokemon that stood out in the Pokemon games, manga, and even the anime. Pokemon that are different from the others, and have something special to them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and without further ado, let's get started. Starting off this list, we have the University Magikarp. Now back in 1998, there was a campaign that was publicized in a Japanese magazine for primary school children. This campaign included a series of tests where the students could participate in for a chance to visit a Pokemon conference in Osaka. Those who were lucky enough to be invited were placed in a 2-day tournament where each student battled each other to qualify for the grand prize. And what was the grand prize, you may ask? It was, of course, the University Magikarp. Now you're probably asking yourself, what is so unique about this Magikarp? Well, this particular Magikarp knows Dragon Rage. Oh, and only 20 of them exist in the world. Now, with only 20 of these bad boys to ever be made, one could say that this Magikarp is one of the rarest Pokemon of all time. And they would be right, because I didn't even know about this Magikarp during the production of my rarest Pokemon of all time video, and this Magikarp would definitely be on that list. But just a little hint, this wouldn't be the rarest Pokemon of all time. Not even close. But anyways, along with this Magikarp, a promotional card was handed out with it, and these cards go for thousands of dollars in today's market, which is pretty insane. So I think it's fair to say that this Magikarp is pretty unique, and that is why it's number 10 on this list. Coming at number 9, we have the Lucky Chansey. And let me tell you, you're going to need all the luck in the world to even come across this one in a million Pokemon. Literally. So what makes this Chansey so unique to be put on this list? Well, first off, it's from the Safari Zone, and the chances of coming across one of these rare suckers is 1 out of 25. At this point, you're probably saying to yourself, well, that's not that unique. I mean, everyone has come across a Chansey in the Safari Zone at one point, and you're right. But you probably didn't come across a shiny Chansey in the Safari Zone, which has a 1 in 204,800 chance. But that's sort of cheating this list. I mean, you can easily do that with any exclusive Safari Zone Pokemon, or any Pokemon for that matter. Well, there's much more to Chansey. Chansey has a 1 out of 20 chance of holding a lucky egg. So the odds of finding a Safari Shiny Lucky Egg Chansey is literally 1 in 4,096,000 chance of happening. Not to mention that Chansey is one of the hardest Pokemon to even capture in the Safari Zone. So good luck even catching this rare Pokemon even if you somehow come across it. For number 8, we have the Mystery Egg Pokemon. Now back in 2002, the Pokemon Centers of Tokyo and Osaka held 3 Mystery Egg events in the first 2 months of the new year. The whole purpose of these events were to promote the new egg feature that came with Pokemon Gold and Silver, and the Pokemon you receive with these Mystery Eggs were very unique and interesting. The first batch of Mystery Eggs came with the new baby Pokemon. These baby Pokemon knew very unique moves that they couldn't normally learn. The most interesting of the bunch was probably the Pichu who knew Sing, but this is just the start, because the next 2 bunches get far more interesting. The second batch of Mystery Eggs all came with baby Pokemon who knew Petal Dance, including a Psyduck, which was really cool, but not as cool as the third batch. This batch came with very unique Pokemon. It came with a Bulbasaur who knew Ancient Power, a Charmander who knew Crunch, a Totodile who knew Submission, and a Hoot Hoot who knew Nightshade. Now isn't that awesome? My favorite one out of them all has to be the Bulbasaur who knows Ancient Power. That is probably the most unique event Pokemon I've ever seen, and that is why they were put on this list. Coming up next, we have the Anime Pokemon. Now for this spot, I wanted to go over some of the most unique anime Pokemon that we've seen throughout the years. And for some of these, I didn't even know they existed before researching for this video. Now let's start with what I think inspired the Alola form Pokemon for Pokemon Sun and Moon, and that is the Orange Archipelago Island Pokemon. The Orange Archipelago is home to a variety of islands that inhabit very unique Pokemon. And the reason why I think we've only seen Kanto Pokemon get Alola forms is because the Orange Archipelago is located south of the Kanto region, which does make more sense. So these upcoming Pokemon you're about to see just might make it to Pokemon Sun and Moon. So let's start with the Picanian Pokemon. There are 18 Pokemon that inhabit the Pecan Island, and well, you guessed it, they're pink. The reason behind this very strange occurrence lies with a special fruit that only grows on the island. This fruit changes the pigment in their skin to a pinkish color, which is pretty cool and would be awesome to see in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Moving on to Valencian Pokemon, these Pokemon are from the Valencian Island and have very unique colors to them. It's almost like they're shiny, but they're not. And who can forget about the Crystal Onyx from Sunburst Island? which I think is the most unique Pokemon of them all. And just a few other honorable mentions for Pokemon that don't live in the Orange Islands. We have the Snowman Snorlaxes who only know Blizzard, which could potentially mean that they are Ice type, the Watermelon Camouflage Electrode, and of course, the Golden Sudowoodo that was turned gold during a science experiment. But hands down, my favorite of them all is the Crystal Onix, and I hope to see it in Pokemon Sun and Moon, because that would be awesome. Coming at number 6, we have the Celebrate Pokemon, and I didn't even know this existed until just recently. Now these Pokemon have a very unique move called Celebrate, and what this move does is absolutely nothing in battle, besides celebrating. It's basically a splash with some pizzazz on it, but it's still really cool at the same time. In order to get a Pokemon that knows Celebrate, you have to either live in Japan and go to a Pokemon Center on your birthday, or go to a special event like the World Championships. This year at Worlds, the first generation starter Pokemon were given out with a special move. But out of all the 16 Celebrate Pokemon that have been given out, one in particular is hilarious, the Magikarp. Not only does it have the useless move Splash, but it now has a second useless move, Celebrate, which is pretty funny. Too bad it's not obtainable anymore, because I would love to have that Magikarp. For number 5, we have Black Fog. Now what makes this Pokemon so interesting is that it's probably the most evil Pokemon to ever exist in the entire Pokemon universe. And here's why. The Black Fog is actually a large evil haunter that has been around for millions of years. So long in fact that he's been around since the times where Pokemon were treated as gods, which I can only imagine being the time of Groudon and Kyogre. Now what makes this Pokemon so evil is that it preys on the souls of Pokemon and humans for its pleasure. The history behind this evil creature lies with a high level haunter that likes to haunt people. In the manga, this haunter kills Sabrina's Pokemon when she was younger and has been haunting her ever since. But the story gets even more interesting on how this creature was stopped. How the story goes in the manga, Ash and Brock builds a large Pokeball in order to capture this gigantic haunter. After finding it and weakening it, they throw the Pokeball at him. But something strange happens. The Black Fog uses Explosion in order to escape the capture, but this leaves him with very low health. Eventually Ash and Brock pins him to a wall where he's unable to escape. Knowing this, the Black Fog decides to commit suicide by using self-destruct, because it would rather kill itself than be caught by a human, which is pretty messed up. Imagine that happening in the anime. No one would expect something like that. For number 4, we have the Spiky-Eared Pichu. Now this Pokemon is definitely one of a kind, because this is the only Pokemon to ever have an alternate appearance in a mainstream Pokemon game, not counting the cosplay Pikachus from Pokemon X and Y, because they're just wearing costumes and they're not as cool. Now this Spiky-Eared Pichu is actually a very rare Pokemon to come across. So rare in fact that it's among the rarest of event Pokemon. The reason this Pichu is so rare is because the things you had to do in order to get one was very obscure and not many people knew about it. The method to obtain a Spiky-Eared Pichu starts with another Pichu, a Pikachu colored Pichu, basically a shiny Pichu. This shiny Pichu was obtainable through a Wi-Fi event that only lasted for 20 days, and this event wasn't really broadcasted to the public that well. But if somehow you were lucky enough to know about this event, you would then grab your Pikachu colored Pichu and then head to Ilex Forest to the abandoned shrine. Once you interact with the abandoned shrine, with your special Pichu behind you, a little cutscene will happen, and then you will eventually receive a Spiky-Eared Pichu. So while being the only Pokemon with an alternate appearance that doesn't relate to the gender, this Pichu was also featured in the anime, which is pretty cool. For number 3, I chose the Virus Groudon. Now in the Pokemon movie Jirachi Wishmaker, a person that goes by Butler was assigned by Team Magma to bring Groudon back to life. While attempting this impossible task, Butler unfortunately fails the experiment because his machine lacked the proper amount of power. After being exiled from Team Magma, Butler grew desperate for completing his orders in hopes that he could return to the evil organization. Sometime later in the movie, Butler finds and awakens Jirachi from his 1,000-year slumber, and uses Jirachi's power in order to recreate Groudon. But this wasn't the real Groudon, it was pure evil. Proclaimed as an abomination, this Pokemon seems to be even worse than the original creation of Mewtwo. I mean, Mewtwo only destroyed a ship of people, while this Groudon started to suck the life force of every organism. It makes you wonder if Virus Groudon inspired the idea for Yveltal, because his Pokedex entry states that when it dies, it sucks the life force of the entire planet in order to be reborn again. But anyways, for being a failed clone just like Mewtwo and never really becoming an official Pokemon, I thought the Virus Groudon was unique enough to be number 3 on this list. For number 2, we have the original second generation starter Pokemon. Now back in the 1990s when Pokemon Gold and Silver were still in development, an alpha demo of the game was released to the public. In the demo, the player was given a level 8 starter Pokemon at random. The 3 possible Pokemon you could obtain was Chikorita, Kurisu, and Honoguma. That's right, Totodile and Cyndaquil weren't the original starter Pokemon for the second generation games, and Chikorita had slightly different appearance to her. So starting with Kurisu, this Pokemon was number 212 in the National Pokédex, and knew the moves Growl, Water Gun, and Tackle. Some fans believe that Kurisu inspired the design for Spheal, But personally, I don't think that's true. I think it was a standalone Pokemon that was later replaced by Totodile. Moving on to Honoguma, its name is a combination of Japanese words that mean flame and bear. Due to the meaning of its name, some fans believe that this Pokemon inspired Teddiursa, which I can see true to an extent, but still, knowing that Totodile and Cyndaquil weren't actually the original starter Pokemon makes these unreleased Pokemon very unique, and that is why they are number 2 on this list. And for number 1, the most unique Pokemon, in my opinion, are Generation 1 Shiny Pokemon. Yep, you heard that right, it is possible to catch a shiny Pokemon in the first generation games, but it is extremely unlikely that you will ever come across one if you don't know what you're doing. And here's why. As we all know, the chances of coming across a shiny Pokemon from Generation 2 and onwards is 1 out of 8,192, which is a 0.01% chance of happening. But it is a completely different story when it comes to Generation 1 games. In Generation 1, just like all mainstream Pokemon games, the Pokemon have individual values which determine its stats, like HP or attack power. So using an online calculator that uses a specific formula, you can determine which Pokemon are actually shiny by looking at its stats. For an example, a shiny Moltres will always have 140 special, 105 speed, 105 defense, and either these sets of numbers for attack and these sets of numbers for HP. Once you trade this unique Pokemon to Pokemon Gold, Silver, or Crystal, you can see it shine in its glory. Pretty crazy, right? And for those reasons, I thought the Generation 1 shiny Pokemon deserved number 1 for this list. So yeah, those are 10 unique Pokemon you probably didn't know about. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like if you did, I appreciate it a ton. And also, if you're enjoying the channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for fan interactions, video updates, and other cool stuff, follow me at Ethan Dobbs. And for the question of the day, who is the most unique Pokemon to you? Be sure to leave it down below in the comments. I can't wait to see you guys have in mind. And I'll see y'all next time. See ya.